gonna come up now.
Hey, if we have orbs, that's great.
Bah, ha, ha, ha.
Right.
It's been a while.
It has been a while.
How are
Hello.
you?
Great. How are you?
I am good. I am good. I am I've a million things in the cauldron, right?
The kitty. Yeah.
A million things on the stove. But we have a number of things to talk about.
Right.
So what do you want to start talking about? I think it's important that we start, actually, okay, forget that I just asked you that. I'm giving you my opinion of
Okay.
the things that we were going to talk about. I think the thing that is most important to start with is the realization that you had about a phenomena that we are dealing with within our state assembly that is driving everyone crazy and that is causing a lot of hard feelings and misunderstandings.
And friction. Right.
A lots of friction and division and judgment, and it's making it really hard to interact because people are just they're getting triggered, and this is, astrologically, this is exactly what we're dealing with right now. But what would be helpful, I think, is if we just sort of laid out, if you shared with me what your realization was. That is a brilliant recognition of what's going on. So share, please.
All right. So up to this point, assembly being very, very small has really been a collection of people that have come to the recognition that we've been defrauded of our true divine inheritance, our citizenship. We've been, you know, I don't even know what's the term, shanghaied, gang, what do they call it when they press ganged, stolen, our identity stolen, shipped out to sea. We've been commoditized
The
and
whole
their birth,
and the
all of
whole
that. Right,
invasion of the republic and
right.
creation
So
of the corporation. Yeah.
so everyone individually has come to that realization and found assembly and recognized that, okay, we need to declare ourselves, we need to come back to land and soil, learning the history, learning all of that, and also carrying with it everyone has their own story about how they have been essentially stepped on and treated badly by the de facto, by all of the structure that's been put into place, created to deliberately suppress us. So we all are coming from our own unique perspective, and we are all figuring out, what does sovereignty and self-governance for myself mean to me? And we've been doing it sort of together. So helping each other out, oh, this happened to you. Well, why don't you try this? And here's a form that I came up with, which helps to clarify, that you can use as a notification to some entity or whatever that has trespassed against you, and so on. So it's kind of been that all along. But now we're at a point of where we are literally cresting the wave of being fully acknowledged by the de facto. And all of the assemblies across every single state in the union is in the same place. And also, for those of us that have been paying attention and following Anna's work, and also seeing the actual actions that are being taken at the federal level by the corporation, there's a lot of confirmation that this really is happening and that it is true.
So much confirmation.
Right. So up to this point, we've kind of been just coming together more to support each other, I feel. But now we're at a point of where, all right, the rubber's hitting the road. We have to stand up and create the structure that the de facto can interact with, that is going to hold them accountable. And also, we are stepping into the assembly, jural assembly must step into the role, which is what government is actually supposed to do. The intention of the original Republican form of government, the intention has always been to preserve the sovereign rights of every living man and woman. That is the responsibility. Now, you can tell that that's clearly not the responsibility of the de facto. They don't preserve the rights of anybody, except for they try to preserve their own, the rights of their own assets, whatever the corporation. So that is our role. And so we have a lot of bickering back and forth as there are. So, okay, let me backtrack a little bit. The primary and the number one overarching word that governs people who are populating the government must be responsibility. And so think about the tree of life. There needs balance. There's mercy, there's justice. You have to have both. You can't be all on one side. And so we're kind of at a place now in our assembly where we have sovereign, the individual, and my rights, and I need to preserve my whatever is important to me, and
Mhm.
the rights of all and the protection of all. And so that's what we're up against now. And we're dealing with primarily, I'm seeing all of this arguing that's happening, people that are questioning the steps that we're taking to create structure, to create a safe container to protect the rights of all of everyone. We're being constantly bombarded with you're not doing things right. You're stepping on my rights and so on and so forth. You're not letting me participate, which and it is my right to do so because you're
In the
requiring.
way that I want to.
Exactly. And so it's really and the folks that are doing that are not, they haven't really, I think, come to the realization that there are actually two groups within assembly right now. There are the people like me. I'm in my role as treasurer. I have to work. I have to set up the structures for the whole financial security to ensure that when people actually have access to our credit to money for whatever iteration that's going to be, that whole thing is my role. And also always the role of the financial person. Like in my former life as a CFO, I was the responsible to protect the assets and to make sure that everything was being done appropriately for the good of all without conflicts of interest. And so protection is important. And so I also have to know, where people are coming from, and I have to always be, vigilant of that. And so that's really the role of the assembly government. We recently put out a handbook to create structure for the meetings because, quite frankly, we've lost people who don't want to listen to a 2 hour long bitch session where one person gets up there and pontificates all about whatever. Like that's not what we're supposed to be doing. And so because so many people are complaining about that, and that's not accomplishing work. It's not accomplishing movement forward to create a
No,
structure.
I need to interrupt you for two reasons. I keep smirking because there is so much orb activity in your room. It's unbelievable. Back and forth and back and up and down and back and around. And it's just happening nonstop, which I think is really cool. So I'm a little bit of two minds. I'm trying to pay attention to what you're saying because I'm interested, but I'm also distracted by all the little orbs. Okay. That said, the other piece of it is that people are so hungry, I think, for connection and for being with like-minded people who are interested in sovereignty and are interested in talking about our wins, that they're utilizing the assembly meeting to connect with people and to talk about the wins or the struggles that they're having, and they're not comprehending that that's not what assembly meeting is for either.
Right.
Those kinds of things happen in the county meetings. Those
Right.
happen when you reach out to people who are American state nationals or are coming to meetings, and you
Mhm.
connect with them and you have coffee, you invite them over for a meal, you get together, you go out, you work on your car together.
Right.
You connect in the way that we were connecting in the 70s and in the 80s, right? Like,
Yeah.
and even before, like going to somebody's home rather than utilizing the time that we have set aside for business,
Yeah.
for like come to the county meetings to talk about your thoughts about these things that are on the agenda,
Yep.
but don't waylay the process of moving forward with the structure because you want to process. Don't do that in assembly. Do that before assembly. Do that in the county meetings, not during the assembly meeting, right? So you can object and we can follow procedure in terms of like, is protocol being violated right now? But this is
Mhm.
not the time to air those grievances. It's really your duty to know and do that before the meeting.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people objected to an email that was sent to introduce the proposed handbook, which sets up some structure, a code of conduct, because we need that. We
Mhm.
need for people to realize that they can't just go on and on and on. We need for people to realize that they have to speak respectfully to others and not be insulting. We need for people to take responsibility.
Decorum. What's decorum
Right,
and
decorum.
what's living in
Right.
peace?
Right, exactly. And
Yeah.
so there's been a whole lot of objection about that, and the objection, a lot of it comes down to the way that it was presented when it was put out. Now, it was put out more than 30 days in advance to give people the opportunity to pick through it and to come up with their ideas of the alternatives and to present it and to start a discussion, which nobody did. Instead, people waited till literally the night before to object to, well, this is not valid, blah, blah, blah. And then it created a huge,
Or I wasn't asked. I wasn't asked. You were asked 30 days ago to read through this and respond
right,
with edits or with or whatever. But I think the way it went out confused people because I think when it was sent out, what was said in the email that it was sent out in, there was an acknowledgement of like it's not, we're not like you don't get to debate on whether it's happening or not,
right.
right?
But that, right,
People took that as I can't say anything about this piece, as opposed to comprehending that that meant we will have a vote on this.
right, right. Well,
We're
and you know
not
what?
going to waylay this. We will have a vote.
Yeah,
People
right.
didn't get that, but
They
nobody
didn't get it.
asked.
And right. And so that's not self-governing. When you have something and you have an impression, it is your responsibility to get clarification, not sit there and stew in silence, which is what people did. And so again, it's a matter of trying to teach people that this is what it actually means to self-govern. It's to be proactive. It's to take responsibility. People don't want to take responsibility. They want to sit there and then join in a big stew, which is really not that's not productive and it's not helping us to do anything. And so that's been going on, but it really does come down to people that are stuck on the me, these are my rights. I'm the sovereign, I should have my way. I should have my say. And the people that are all about creating that structure so that you are safe to do that. And
Yeah,
and it's perfectly fine for people to be over there, but they just need to acknowledge that, okay, so maybe they're not ready to put that aside to accept the greater mantle, which is the responsibility of working cohesively in a group and
right.
collaboratively.
All structure is not bad. And I think at one point someone had measured the fact that we were utilizing 2/3 vote within the assembly of the passing of the handbook as a violation of the original um, body and framework that was used, that was complete 100% consensus,
Yeah, which
right?
is impossible in a group, right?
We're not, when people are learning how to be sovereign and they're deprogramming, it's not helpful. Nobody at this point knows how to do that.
Yep.
And to assume that we have to learn that in order to have an assembly, I don't think is realistic. I don't think, and so there's a part of me that doesn't know whether I don't necessarily trust that idea is not coming from a disruptionist perspective and an attempt to thwart
I
the
think it is.
we are
Yeah.
trying to do by
Yep,
coming
absolutely.
together and working in such a way with a basic structure, a
Right.
basic
Right.
structure
Right.
of
It's right.
meetings.
It's an absolute, and I don't know if it's necessarily a conscious thing.
Right.
And I also feel like that's coming from a place of having been stepped on so much up to this point, and I get that. And
Mhm.
so you don't have to participate. You can stay over there and be a sovereign and just hopefully realize that those of us that are here, our goal is to create that safety for you to continue to do that. And you don't
And in
necessarily
order to
have
do
to
that,
be a part of that.
you said earlier, this, I think I felt like this was important. You said in order for us to be recognized by the Confederation, we have to achieve and arrive at a basic structure
Right,
for
with minimum standards.
for them to work with us, for us to be
Exactly.
acknowledged. And sure, maybe you don't like the idea of all of the connections and the assemblies in all states. I mean, I don't know what objection people have to working in that framework, but
Yeah.
it makes sense for us to be able to move forward. and to create the changes that we want to see, to
Yep.
not do things in the way that things have been done to us
Yep. Exactly.
since the inception of the incorporation.
Right. Right, exactly. And the other thing too that's really important, people might not like it, is that we have to come from a place of credibility as assembly. So when I am sitting, if I am sitting in a room facing Maura Healey and the Chief Justice of the Massachusetts de facto Supreme Court, I can't have them look at me and say, "Oh, you have a rap sheet that's a mile long and you got in trouble with the Leos for this, this, and this, and you're a sovereign citizen." I mean, that's a liability. And so it is really important that people recognize, again, accept the responsibility that perhaps if that's my history, I might not be the best person to be the front man on this committee. And so there seems to be a lot of that too, where people are attempting to really insert themselves because they feel it's their right to hold these positions and that we should not prevent them. But the thing is, they should recognize on their own if that they have a responsibility to the whole and to the safety of the whole. And so that's another thing that we're running up against because people are objecting to the whole idea of vetting. Well, we need to know. We need to know where people are coming from. We need to know what the perception is going to be in the de
Even
facto.
even if the rap sheet is solely because you have always known your sovereignty and you've
Right.
always tried to live as a sovereign being, and you got squashed and stepped on multiple times by the de facto. And so the fact that you have had all of these run-ins is illegitimate and not the reason that you should be judged. But yes, at this point, we have to in a way it's not about sacrifice of the self, but in some way it is for the greater good. Right
Exactly.
now we have to get our pillars in place in order to be recognized, in order
Absolutely.
for everyone to be recognized. We have to do this.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the other thing too I want to say about that is I totally understand. I I yield to the statement that that should not be, like the de facto does their own thing. It's not necessarily lawful. Legal is not lawful. Legal is government sanctioned behavior of
Right.
whatever, and it can be completely unethical and completely without any moral code whatsoever. I totally, completely agree with that. However,
Mhm.
I also want people to look, I want people to consider that if that happened to you, what have you done since then to help to mitigate the impression and also to use the systems that exist to change that? And I give an example. So I give an example, like two, all right, let's take two people. Let's take this hypothetical person over here that got in trouble for gun charges in that jurisdiction, didn't have whatever I know, unlawful certifications and so on. The de facto came after them. They got in trouble. They have a rap sheet that's a mile long. It's all about that, and they've been labeled a sovereign citizen. And then this other hypothetical person that initially happened to, but who proactively began to fight them back in their courts using all of the resources at
Right.
his
Right.
disposal, also using his amazing intellect to do digging and to find information and to try things, and has since steered the ship.
And to remain positive.
Exactly, and to steer the ship away to the point of where now that this individual is taking on the whole legitimacy of gun certification, carrying all of that stuff at the federal level on behalf of the entire union, every single state taking that on. That is one example of, okay, so you're not just, that didn't just happen to you and you didn't, and you did nothing. You just step back and stand on, well, I was wronged, I was harmed, my rights were stepped on. Or yeah, that's true, and so how do I fight them in their own sandbox? How do I
So
change things?
this to me is a representation of something that you and I have actually led workshops on, right? When it comes to
Right.
spiritual sovereignty, what does it mean to be sovereign?
Right,
body,
and l
mind,
let me
spirit, and
can we
soul.
pause this because I wanna do it in segments?
Sure, and we just had a bunch of orb activity when I
Okay,
was
good.
saying that
Alright,
they
I'm
we
gonna
had
stop.
orb acti
All
so
right, I'm
I
gonna stop it now.
so pause your recording.
Yep, alright, stop